There we go. So I guess you might say like it's an unfair or it's kind of a weird comparison. But when you put the Werehog next to DMC Devil May Cry, and you start to appreciate the Werehog a lot more. I don't think it's that unfair though, because personally I've always thought of Sonic and Dante together. Because I mentioned this a few times, but I consider when you look at his attitude and his behavior, Sonic's a character action. Oh, well, there you go. Look, my score is 0. Once, like, that's really frustrating. You really have to, like, not die, ever, or else your score is just gonna get tanked. And I guess you just don't care, right? But, you know, it hurts my OCD getting a D at the end of a level. There we go. The Werehog levels are actually really easy to get high ranks for because you just get so much score for fighting enemies as the Werehog compared to like regular Sonic, and you kind of have to metagame the level a little bit in order to get a high score. I've always considered Sonic to be like a character action protagonist. If you put Dante and Sonic, like, that's something I should do. I should take like DMC cutscenes and Sonic game cutscenes and put them side by side and be like, compare and contrast. That is definitely the personality that Sonic has going for him. He's got a lot of bravado and confidence through his actions. And he's like a blood knight who's like, yeah, I'm gonna have fun fighting these dudes. Probably not really so much in this game, unfortunately, but like I said, oh, come on. Like, the story of this game isn't really all that important. I mean, there was that one scene where Sonic was like, oh, saving the world, putting back the broken up pieces of the planet all together. What a great excuse to travel around the globe, right? Like, he's taking this, like, really actual destruction of the world situation and going like, yeah, let's have a good time with it. Let's go on vacation. I get like the entire motif of the game being about travel and about like a road trip vibe and traveling around is supportive of Sonic's attitude. Where he's like, oh, planet's all broken up. Let's go on a fucking road trip, right? But aside from that, and aside from one other thing that we will get to that is a great fuck yeah Sonic moment, revelation of sorts. Yeah, like the Havoc's physics engine was not the best choice for this fucking game. Especially considering how much else is just working against this game in terms of its technical culpability. Oh. Come on. I don't know, I feel like if they took a second crack at it, they'd probably be a lot better with gameplay of this nature. Or again, just hand it over to Platinum. Although, they might not have such a good relationship with Sega right now. I'm not sure. After the whole Bayonetta thing. I think that'd be cool, though, if Platinum did, like, Knuckles gameplay and had it just be character action. That'd be great. Anyway. There's not a lot of... Well, I mean, Sonic has never been a character with a lot of depth to his personality. He's always been pretty shallow and one-dimensional. But, like, not in a negative way. Like, the personality he has is a good personality for a character of his style. to have. Like, if you're gonna have a character action protagonist, you can do a lot worse than Sonic. For example, DMC Devil May Cry. Again. That game's really bad, you have no fucking idea. I guess it'd be better to talk about this for the next game, because the next game is the one that kind of has a bizarre controversy around it. But thinking about how the guys who make the game are like, yo, the German voice actor for Eggman, it's like, that's Dr. Eggman, motherfuckers. It reminds me of how, like, people always try and make this weird stink about the localization of the Sonic games. Ah, shit. And it's just so weird, like, of all things, Sonic is the one you're trying to make a stink about the localization. Oh, you gotta be kidding me on that one. You gotta be twisting my nutsack with that, boy. Are you fucking for real? You gotta be twisting my nuts on that. I cannot believe that that is something that has occurred in this lifetime. Aw, dude, that's just not okay. That's just not something that's okay to have happened in this world. Great. Phenomenal. What an impressive score. I'm gonna get an S rank for that performance. Christ. That's always the worst. Dying right at the end of the level. Like, your score is just like, you might as well be finishing the level with 0 for all the difference it makes. Is there a medal in here? This is where I would put one. Right at the end. Yeah, there we go. Boom. My instinct served me well. It's like every time you start a 2D platformer, walk to the left. First thing I do.
Wow, I rule!
Are you for real? I don't deserve that at all. Maybe it's just because I finished it really fast. I don't know. That's a weird one. I'm gonna have to question the referee's decision on that one. Might as well even this out. Again, you really don't need to upgrade Sonic the Hedgehog at all in this game. And the Werehog, all you need to do is get that like Psycho Crusher attack, and you're pretty much in the gold. You really only need to get the Werehog up to like about level 10 for his combat, and after that, like, if you want to bump his life so that you're not made of fucking tissue paper. Did I even have to do that level? I didn't get a key for it. I think that might have been optional. Oh no. Oh, whatever. I lost my train of thought. People, like, of all things, it seems weird to me that you would try and make a stink about the localization of the Sonic games. Of all of the fucking franchises that are Japanese developed and then localized, Sonic is the one where you have the most input from the guys who actually made the game. I talked about this back in my Sonic Adventure 2 video. God damn it. The guys who make the game into English and the guys who wrote the original Japanese script and developed the game are in the same building as one another.
Feeling good!
Nothing is getting...
Feeling good.
Huh, where am I supposed to go then? I'll go talk to Pickle. See what he has to say about this. Nothing is going into the English script that is not approved by the Japanese developers. So you can't be like, oh, this is a terrible localization. They had to run the English script past the Japanese devs who speak and understand English. Nothing is going into this game that they aren't approving of. It seems so weird to me that that is going to be something you're going to complain about with Sonic of all things. When Nintendo is right there, having all of their games just being butchered by their fucking Treehouse division. Amy, I don't know what universe you're living in. Sonic is clearly not interested in any kind of romantic entanglements whatsoever. That's what makes your relationship so interesting. Okay, where am I supposed to go, Pix?
Sonic.
Sonic! Abada! Yeah, just for no reason, I guess. Yeah, let's do the nighttime Shamar level. Just to get it out of the way, kinda. Ah! Get away from me, chili dog man! Oh, hey! You're gonna get stoned walking around like that, girl. Like, of all games to be like, oh, the English localization is butchering the Sonic character. I mean, Sonic is one of those characters that I kind of don't even think of the original Japanese as being the true original version of him, you know? It's kind of weird to think about it in those terms, but I do think of Sonic as being kind of a Western character. I mean, he is developed by Japanese developers, but if you actually look into the history of what went into his creation, Sega of America played a very integral and arguably, like, more influential role in the creation of the character than the guys who originally came up with the concept. So, like, originally, the Japanese devs had, like, a different idea for what the gameplay and the character was gonna be, and it was Sega of America who was like, no, you gotta change that, that's not gonna sell. That's not gonna sell, dude, you gotta do what we say to do. And there was a lot of conflict between them. There was a lot of conflict between Sega of America and Sega of Japan in regards to, like, the development of that original Sonic the Hedgehog game, and there's a funny interview where they're like, we're really resentful about it, but in the end of the day, you know, looking back in retrospect, are you supposed to get up there? Looking back in retrospect, the decisions that they enforced were the correct ones, and it all worked out for the better. Sonic's always been a character who kind of transcends, but in a cool way. Like, the game industry has always had this dichotomy between Japanese developed games and Western developed games. Even going back to the early days where the console market was kind of dominated by Japanese developed technology and software. Because, like, when people talk about the video game crash, which is, like, that's something that people are so ignorant about, actually, because, like, that did happen. Atari did go bankrupt. Like, all the console manufacturers, like Atari, and I can't even think of the second one. You know, the pre-Nintendo console manufacturers, they did go bankrupt and go out of business. That did happen, but you're still kind of dramatically oversimplifying it. There is more to that situation than what you're talking about. Like, the arcade market there was no hiccup in the arcade scene. The arcades were not affected by the quote-unquote crash whatsoever. In fact, arguably speaking, arcades probably benefited from it because people didn't have home consoles anymore. So if they wanted to play video games, they had to go out to the arcades. So you could make a firm case for saying, like, the arcades were, during the quote-unquote crash, that was the best time for the arcade side of the industry. And PC games, they just kept chugging along, like, they didn't even notice. You know, like the Commodore and the Apple II and, like, home personal computers. Games made for those, they didn't even, like, it didn't affect them to any degree whatsoever. Like, people look at, oh, Atari crashed. Yeah, that's the entire industry. This one company went bankrupt. The whole industry crashed. And then go over across the pond. I don't know if that's an applicable turn of phrase. To Japan, guess what? The Famicom, like, family computer, launched the year that Atari went bankrupt. Yeah, I think this level is probably optional too. That's weird. Maybe they're not optional and, like, mandatory levels later on. I have no idea. I have no idea what the
Here we
like primary path levels are. I should actually probably look that up. But these are the levels that I did. So I'm not sure now. It's nice to do, like, the nighttime level and then immediately do the daytime level, though. And I do get such feelings of... I want to say Radical Highway, but that's not what it was called in Sonic Adventure 1. Radical Highway Sonic Adventure 2.
feeling good.
But anyway, all that to say, like, the perception of... like, the way the game industry works has always been... Nope, okay. That's... Gotta love it. The perception of the game industry and, like, the popular consciousness has always been kind of limited. Arguably speaking, like, we think of this dichotomy of... yes. Of Japanese developed games and consoles and Western developed games and consoles. Especially nowadays, but, like, always. We've always had that kind of split. But when you think, like, my point, like, all that to say, the cool thing about Sonic is he's always kind of transcended that. Which is so cool. Like, it's sort of like Sonic is the character that he represents the industry that we deserve. Like, oh shit, I should have used the Lightspeed Dash. The industry that, like the best possible future is an industry where the Western market developers and Japanese developers kind of work in harmony, and we get the best of both worlds. We get the best of the game design philosophies of both cultures. I mean, like, Hideo Kojima has talked about that as, like, you know, I want to make games that have the spirit of both land masses, like whatever you want to call it. But Sonic's been doing that from the beginning. Sonic has always been a child of two nations. Like, he was created by the Japanese devs, but so much of what ended up making Sonic what he is came from decisions made by Sega of America. And a desire to beat Nintendo. Sonic's a character who's defined by a bunch of interesting things, I feel. There's so many, like, the story of Sonic as an icon, as a figure in the industry, is almost just as interesting as the games themselves, for me. Particularly with this game, talking about the game as a product, like the game as a game, oh Jesus, is actually more interesting for me to talk about than what's actually in the game. Like the story of the game. Like, the Dark Gaia stuff, there's kind of nothing of substance there that interests me to talk about. But talking about, like, look at the reason they made it this way is because, well, look at what was around them to emulate at the time. Like, obviously they're gonna put in, like, God of War style... Oh, shit. God of War light style combat. I mean, that's kind of what was popular at the time, and they've always been happy to adopt the current trend of the era to try and innovate with their mainline franchise and experiment. Sega has never been afraid to take risks. I don't even know what is happening right now. Jesus fucking Christ. I don't even know what that was. Holy shit. I'm just gonna ignore you guys. I guess not. Okay, now we're doing it again, I guess. Don't fuck it up this time. Goddamn. Okay. I don't know what's happening. Stop running into those bombs. That's what's happening. Sega has always been willing to take risks and experiment with different styles of gameplay with their fucking front runner. With their... Jesus Christ, that was too fast. That was too fucking fast for me to react. Like, Sonic's their fucking mascot character, and yet they're doing stuff like throwing in all these interesting experimental styles of gameplay in there just to see how it kicks. And I think that's really cool. Like, they've never been afraid to try and adopt new trends to see how it fits on their... Like, Nintendo would never do that. Nintendo doesn't really step out of what might be their comfort zone when it comes to the mainline games. Jesus Christ, I missed out the Moon Medal. Like, it's the spin-offs where they're willing to, like, experiment and try new things and test the waters. I mean, I say that, but I don't mean, like, in terms of, like, you know, Mario 64 was a big departure and a big risk at the time. I just mean, like, they don't try and do weird shit, you know? They wouldn't take the fucking boost for mechanic, which was originated in a handheld 2D title, and throw it in the mainline series just to see if it worked. They wouldn't take God of War style combat, which is like all the rage at the moment, and throw it in there. They wouldn't give Yoshi, they wouldn't give a Wario game where he's shooting aliens with a gun, you know? That's the kind of thing I'm talking about. Like, Sonic's always been this really interesting blend of all these different concepts and ideas. Alright, the first person we run into is a tourist. Typical. Look at this guy's fucking square-ass head. I love this environment. Like, look, okay, here, I referred to this before. In this level, you can see the tornado is just parked there. So this confirms that we've been flying the tornado around from continent to continent. And Tails is just hanging back, I guess. He's off screen, but he is palling around with us all over the place also. Which I think is pretty funny. Like, look at this environment. Like, look at how fucking gorgeous. This aesthetic is always by far my favorite. Like, the tropical beach location. Just something about it really just looks gorgeous. Like, with water that's clear, see-through blue-green, white sandy beaches. Ah, it just looks so fucking great. So I'm just struck by how nice this fucking game looks. To its detriment, arguably, because this level, the daytime level here, is the worst one in the entire game. And we'll get to that when we get to it, but I'm gonna keep exploring to try and find some... Yeah, we got a couple of moon medals here. Sonic's always been this interesting blend of a lot of different ideas. It's never... Sonic has never been a Japanese franchise. It's never been like a Japanese character. He's always been a blend of East and West. He kind of represents that idea of a mingling of the game design and marketing philosophies of both halves of the industry. But I think it's so cool, like, he kind of represents the ideal future of cross-cultural collaboration. I just think that's so nifty. I think that's swell. And, like, for this game, talking about, like, all of that background stuff, the philosophy behind why the game was made the way it was, and the ideas behind, like, Sonic as a character and as a pop cultural figure, all of that is way more interesting to talk about for me than the game itself. Than, like, what's actually than the script. Like, the script, like, what's happening in the narrative of this game, the script of this story, all the Dark Gaia nonsense and whatnot, that is so not interesting to me for this game. Like, for Sonic Adventure, I'll talk about the fucking lore of the Echidna Empire. For this game, there's really nothing of substance there for me to elaborate on, personally, I feel. What's interesting to talk about? Why the fuck did they put God of War Werehog combat in here? Let's talk about that. Let's talk about how this game's a celebration of all the different cultures around the world that have played and beloved Sonic as a cross-cultural mascot icon. Fuck, how are you supposed to get that? All of that is way more interesting to talk about for this game, in my opinion, than, you know, oh, the Dark Gaia. Like, even now, I struggle to even think of derogatory ways to describe it, to explain why it has no interest for me. Like, there's just nothing happening. It's like the purest excuse plot. It's there again, like Sonic said it himself, sounds like a good excuse to travel the world. It's an excuse to start traveling around to all these different vistas and locations. Oh, I thought they were different from nighttime to daytime. It's an excuse. All the planet's been destroyed and broken up into pieces, and you gotta travel to all these different shrines around the world to put it back together. It's an excuse to travel to all these different countries and have a good time on this road trip experience. See? Walk left. Every single platform, every single 2D platform game, walk back and to the left, because they probably hid something back there. At this point, it's actually become, like, cliche in its own way. What's kind of disappointing is they don't have unique enemy designs that fit the location. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like, they have a bunch of different Dark Gaia designs, but they're all just the same Dark Gaia designs everywhere you go. Everywhere you go across the planet, you're gonna be running into these plants. Everywhere you go across the planet, you're gonna be running into the bees. Everywhere you go across the planet, you're gonna be running into the little gremlin guys. It would have been kind of cool if they had personalized enemies for each location that you went to. But no, it's just, it's the, oh, frame rate. It's the same badnik. Fuck off. It's the same badniks all over the world, and it's the same Dark Gaia all over the world. So that's a little bit of a lost opportunity, I feel, is if they really wanted to go whole hog on the, like, cultural celebration idea, it would have been cool if they came up with different enemy designs for that were suited to all of the different locations. And that would have made Dark Gaia a lot more interesting too. Like, it could have been implied that, like, the form that the monster Dark Gaia takes is based on the cultural significance of whatever location you're in. So you could have had an interesting story element where, you know, you go to South America, for example, and people are talking about the Chupacabra, but it's just Dark Gaia monsters. But it has taken the form of the Chupacabra, because that is a mythological figure that's part of their collective unconscious. And Dark Gaia is, like, taking the form of how? What is happening here? Is taking the form that is within the minds of the people in that area. But no, it's just generic gremlin goblins everywhere you go, which is kind of boring, especially after a while when you get to near the end of the game. I mentioned how, like, in Shadow the Hedgehog, you're like, oh, we went from a cutesy little character, we went from a cutesy little cartoon adventure of a hedgehog fighting a capital industrialist who's kidnapping all his animal buddies and putting them into robots. And we're going from that to, oh, we're fighting giant aliens from outer space. Kind of the same thing here, where now it's these weird monster gremlin mat guys made of the dark energy of the planet. Like, we're still getting away from that little animal critter fighting giant robots, right? It's not as bad though, because, like, arguably part of what was so jarring about the Black Arms aliens was that they were, like, actual biological entities and you were shooting them and blood would come out, and that's like really jarring. I feel like the Dark Gaia aren't quite on the same level because they're just generic monster mash things. Like, they're not sentient living creatures. Oh shit. They're not sentient living creatures, they're just random monsters made of Dark Gaia goop or whatever they're fucking composed of. Like, it might as well be zombies without the visceral reality of a human being died and became a zombie, right? Like, that same mentality of wholesome, consequence-free violence against another living person. Oh, they might as well just be... I was gonna say aliens, but that's a bad example because that's what I just talked about. No, it's not on the same level to me. And it's certainly... they're a lot more interestingly designed than the fucking Iblis monsters from goddamn Sonic 06. It's part of that desire for variety. Like, if you just have it be robots, you might feel like, oh, that's gonna get boring after a while. Let's have some other types of enemy monsters for the player to fight against. And I do understand that desire. You want to mix it up a little bit. You want to have some variety to the enemy encounters throughout the game. Although, funnily enough, you only fight badniks as Daytime Sonic. You never fight... Yeah, jump right into his belly and beat him up from the inside out. So good. Look, they just disappear. They might as well be ghosts. Yeah, they might as well just be specters for all the difference it makes. There we go. Daytime Sonic never really fights any Dark Gaia. Only the Werehog fights Dark Gaia, which again supports that idea of, like, people complain about, oh, Tails being scared of the Dark Gaia is out of character or whatever, because people. But there's even nothing saying that Daytime Sonic is capable of fighting the Dark Gaia, let alone Tails. Maybe it's literally only the Werehog who's able to fight them. Maybe if literally anyone or anything else tried to do damage to the Dark Gaia, it wouldn't work. Ah, shit. It's almost something that you don't think about, but if you do think about it, it is kind of like the Dark Gaia are a little weird, like for that same reason. I'm like, oh, well, my Moto Bugs. Where are you, Moto Bugs? I miss you. I miss my Buzz Bombers, and I miss my Moto Bugs. I miss my Grounder. You know, oh, the classic badniks of yore. Now we're fighting evil, dark, monstrosity gremlin dudes. I do get that. I do feel that a little bit. Yeah, the ingredients are definitely there to have, like, the Werehog could have been really well done. But the fact that it really does feel like they just took, like, they got... Like, it feels like when you get RPG Maker and you just use all the preloaded assets that come with the software and you don't put anything original in by itself on your own. It's like they got a disc that was like generic cookie-cutter God of War style combat and just put that in the computer and just put a bunch of Sonic textures over it, and that was it. They didn't do anything else to the gameplay to make it unique or interesting. They just put the most flatline, generic idea of this style of gameplay that you could possibly fathom and threw it in there and did nothing else to make it more interesting or original or unique. That's the biggest thing working against it. It feels like it has no personality. If it had, it kind of doesn't feel like Sonic. Like, I do get that complaint. It doesn't, it feels really out of place. That's why I feel like, to a degree, it should have been a different character. Again, I felt like Knuckles would have been an easy fit for this style of gameplay. But like a character like Sonic, you would think it would be like a Devil May Cry style, where the emphasis is on looking cool and getting it almost feels like you play more like Virgil, where he emphasizes where he's like, I'm gonna get rid of everything in the room as quickly and efficiently as possible, but I'm gonna show off and be really cool and fly about it too. Like, he's got that flair, he's got that extravagance, but he's clearing the room at the same time. But the Werehog really doesn't have that vibe to him. I do really like his animations. They are really unique and utilize the interesting aspects of his character design, where he is using his stretchy arms a lot while he's fighting the dudes. But I just feel like, you know, there's no taunt button, for example. I feel like Sonic would have a taunt button. If you're gonna have this style of gameplay with Sonic, Sonic's gotta have a taunt button. And that will raise your rank, because it makes you look cool. It's so fucking cool. Again, because, like, Sonic and Dante have so much in common as characters, I always kind of do go to DMC when thinking of comparisons of that nature. I saw another medal around here. That wasn't it, but I thought somewhere. Anyway. But, I don't, like, again, I do see those complaints, and they're definitely valid. Like, this is really out of place. You know, whatever happened to my badniks? And it's really kind of bizarre to have this style of gameplay in a Sonic game, and it kind of doesn't suit his character to have him. It suits the design of the Werehog, but it doesn't suit Sonic's character as a cocky, bravado, like Dante-style character attribute. I think it's so ridiculously easy to get a high ranking with the Werehog for some reason. But like, for one thing, it's not like bad, so I got nothing to complain about with it. I do hear the complaints of that's like kind of weird and out of place, but it's not bad, so I don't have a problem with it. But like, I do appreciate them wanting to experiment. That's what this whole game is. It's them trying a bunch of new, different, interesting things and seeing what works and what doesn't. And I appreciate that. They're always, like, happy to try new things and experiment with new ideas and new playstyles. I mean, going back to Sonic Adventure, where they kind of didn't spend all of their time prioritizing making sure that Sonic works and plays well in 3D. They spent their time coming up with a whole bunch of different gameplay styles to throw in there alongside Sonic in 3D. And you can think that's the wrong decision or not, but I think I admire that. I admire their drive to just, like, keep trying new things. They've certainly never been afraid to take risks. with, like, their fucking frontline mascot character here. Elastic ice cream. And, nope. Let's also get some fucking curry. Hey, Chip. Check this fucking weird-ass shit out. Whoa, check this out. It stretches. Shoop. Haha, it's like your arms. I feel like having something sweet. Fuck you, here's curry. This is the opposite of sweet. Literally the exact opposite of sweet. It's fun being on World Tour. I'm seeing so much for the first time. You have amnesia, you fucking idiot. Of course it's all new to you. But yeah, like... Oh man, it's not like... Again, it's I feel bad because it's not something that I spend time doing, it's not something that interests me. But the entire tone of this game, you can so take it easy and just relax with it. I love these idle animations of Sonic doing stretches, by the way. I love watching him, like, stretch his legs, touch his toes. Those are so fun. He even does that a little bit before the level starts, where it's like, ready, go! He'll, like, get down in, like, the running pose. Like, stretch his arms a little bit. It's so nifty. Because I feel bad for not engaging with it, because the entire game is... Everything in the game supports the idea of being on this trip, being on this world adventure. It does feel like you're kind of meant to take it, ironically, take it slow and absorb the atmosphere and interact with all these interesting NPCs and take time out to buy the different food from the stores and eat them with Chip. And, like, connect with him as a character and see their relationship developing. And again, like, even if it's something that doesn't appeal to me, I respect and appreciate that they're not afraid to try doing new things. Even if it doesn't work out. Jealous. You know what Chip doesn't do? Constantly try and shove my dick into his mouth. Maybe you should see if that works. Maybe you should try seeing if, hey, maybe getting off the edge of my dick will make me wanna... will make a lot more tolerable for me to have you around, Amy. Maybe you should try that one of these days. Fucking thought.